Hi, I'm Chris Shelton, coming to you from a beautiful day in downtown Los Angeles at the Los Angeles Convention Center for Fit Expo 2020. I'm here to teach Tai Chi and Qigong for fitness professionals for NASM and Alpha credits. What's really cool is Tai Chi and Qigong is the cutting edge for any fitness professional that wants to help their client to become the best person that they could possibly be. Enjoy the show. My main goal then is to make sure that the time that we spend together, that you walk away with some valuable information and tools that you could actually start to apply and give to your clients immediately, but most importantly, to give to yourself. So do what's comfortable, okay? From here, my knees are slightly bent. My sacrum is gently tucked underneath again. So once again, remember I was going from that S-curve spine going to underneath here. So I roll that sacrum underneath. I'm going to gently tuck the chin by tucking the chin. Presses up on the crown point at the top of the head. The tip of the tongue is now going to gently curl to the roof of the mouth behind the teeth as if saying the letter N. The breath is long, steady, even, and deep into the lower abdomen. And then from here, we're going to start off with a practice I call pulling down the heavens. So 3 times inhaling. Just connecting with your higher self as you inhale, then as you exhale. Just imagine this white light coming down through the body. Inhaling. Allow the thoughts of the day to diminish. Just setting your intention, inhale. And exhaling. First practice here I call tossing the stones. So we're going to inhale, bring the arms up about shoulder height. Then we're going to toss over to our right. Left arm in the front, right arm in the back. Inhale. Now the right arm in the front. Now I want you to go at your own pace. And if you pay attention closely, I'm not just moving my arms, I'm also using my legs as a pump to help to pump the blood up to the chest. So what I want to do is go ahead and have a soft, unfocused gaze to the ends of the fingertips. And as I gaze to the ends of the fingertips as I exhale, I'm going to imagine any excessive thoughts, feelings, or emotions flowing off the tips of the fingers like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. Allow the thoughts of the day to flow away. If you have any pain in the neck, shoulders, upper back, allow for that to flow away, as well as a dark cloud going several feet away from the body. And deep into the ground. And then from here, I'm going to slow down, coming back to the middle, pulling down the heavens again 3 times, inhaling. And exhale. Gathering, inhale. Just allow for this white light to come in, calming the mind. And inhale. And then from here, I'm going to bring the feet a little bit closer together. And I'm going to begin to lightly bounce, but this is not a calf building exercise, so you don't have to lift your heels off the ground. But I'm going to close my eyes, use my internal vision. I'm going to focus on the major joints of the body. where as we age, blood and fluids tend to get stuck. So I'm going to focus first on my ankles and just allow for this gentle shaking or bouncing on the ankles to release out through the bottom of the feet like a dark cloud going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. Next, my knees. I'm going to focus on the knees, any tension or tightness in the knees. Just allow for that gentle shaking to release out. Once again, just imagine as a dark cloud going out through the bottom of the feet and down deep into the earth. Next, the hips, the groin, the low back. If you have any pain in the low back, the lower lumbar region, and the hips, the groin, just allow for that to gently shake free as well, guiding out through the legs, out through the feet, and down deep into the ground. Next, on the spine in between the shoulder blades, opposite the heart, any tension there. Just allow for that to release as well as a dark cloud, guiding out through the legs, out through the feet, and down deep into the ground. Next, the fingers, the wrists, the hands. If you're having joint pain in the wrists and fingers, just gently shaking that out as well. Next, the elbows, the shoulders, the head and neck. Allow for all this to release out through the fingers as a dark cloud, like flowing down deep into the ground. And then from here, we're going to stop bouncing, and then we're going to inhale, rolling up on the balls of the feet as we gather, and exhale. So if you want, as you inhale, you can imagine golden light racing up through the body beyond the top of the head, and drop. 2 more, inhale, and exhale. Last one, inhaling, imagine this golden light racing up through the body beyond the top of the head, and release. Next practice I call shaking the tree. It's like that Taylor Swift song, Shake It Off, because we are the only mammal or animal on land when something happens to us, we do not shake it off. The dog is happy to see you or is angry, that dog will shake from head to toe. 2 ducks get into a fight, the fight lasts a few seconds, they swim away, they flap their wings. Why? Because they're conscious enough to know that they feel that vibration inside their body. As humans, what we do is when we have something happen to us or somebody makes us angry or hurts us, we hold on to it. This creates inflammation, all right? So the key word these days is inflammation. This is what causes inflammation. So the key here is that you have to relax. Nobody's watching you. You have to start with your fingers and just have to let go. Inhaling all the way up. And, oh, come on, you guys do better than that. Inhale. And, so the next time your spouse or significant other upsets you, shake it off, inhaling. Last one, inhaling. I know it seems goofy, but it works. All right, and then pull it back, inhaling 3 times. And exhale. Inhaling, feel this white light come in. Just calm in your mind. Inhale. And exhaling. And after you pull down the heavens 3 times with your eyes still gently closed, tip of the tongue still gently curled to the roof of the mouth behind the teeth, breath long, steady, even and deep into the lower abdomen, we're going to focus on the body. Called the center of balance meditation. We're going to start off with the front of the body. And at the top of the head, we're going to imagine warm oil that begins to melt down through the front. So you feel as this warm oil touches everything, your forehead, your temples, your brow bone, eyebrows and eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the lips, the side of the face, the front of the ears. From the base of the nose into the lips, you now feel this warm oil as it flows into the chin and jaw structure, touching everything in its path. flowing and pouring down through the front of the neck and throat, the upper chest, the shoulders, the biceps, the elbow creases, the forearms, the wrists, the palms of the hands leading all the way out to the fingertips. And from here, enveloping the upper chest, the midsection, the abdomen, the waist, the groin, the thighs. Feel as this warm oil envelops the knees, the shins, the ankles, the feet and toes, all connecting, all flowing off deep into the ground. And then from there, just take a moment to feel the entire front of your body from head to toe. Feel what's there. And now feel the left and right sides of your body. Now feel what's going on behind you. So starting once again at the crown point and the top of the head, allow for this warm oil to envelop the top of the head, the scalp, all the hair follicles, the cells, the tissues, flowing behind the ears, relaxing the ears, the base of the skull, the base of the neck, the shoulders, the triceps, the elbows, the forearms, the wrists, the back of the hands, all the way out to the fingertips. The upper back, the mid back, the low back, flowing and pouring through the buttocks, the hamstrings, the back of the knees, the calves, the ankles and heels. And once again, just allow for this warm oil to melt down deep into the ground. And now feel the entire back of your body. Feel what's there. Feeling just as much in the back as you do in the front, as well as to the left and to the right. And now connecting to your higher self, whatever that may be. Imagine a white light that begins to flow down through the center of your being and illuminating your senses of what's inside of you. You feel the brain. You visualize as white light fills it into the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the pineal, the pituitary glands. You feel the space between the brain and the skull. You feel the bones of the face, the nerves that connect from behind the eyes to the center of the brain. The muscles, the blood vessels, the capillaries, sinuses, the inner ear. Feel and visualize your inner ear. The upper palate of the mouth, the teeth, the gums, the tongue, the lower palate. Touching every vertebra from the base of the skull, vertebra by vertebra, cell by cell. Feel the arteries of the neck and throat. Branching off into the bones of the upper chest, upper back, and shoulders, you feel the fascia, the connective tissue, the muscles, the center of the biceps, triceps. You feel the bones, you feel the center of the elbows. Now you visualize the bones of the forearms, and all the small bones and ligaments of the wrists, hands, all the way out to the fingertips. And now this white light touches every rib. Feel as the ribs wrap around to the spine on the back. Traveling down vertebra by vertebra, rib by rib, cell by cell. As we melt down into the heart, feel the heart. Feel the lungs. And this white light now fills up into the liver and gallbladder on the right side of the body. On the left side, you feel the stomach and spleen. The white light now fills up into the intestines, the bladder, the kidneys, the pelvic bone, sacrum, the bones of the legs, You feel and visualize the femoral arteries, the main arteries that travel down the inner aspect of the legs, extending and nurturing to the feet and toes. Feel the muscles surrounding them. Feel the center of the knees, the center of the shins and calves, all the small bones and ligaments. Allow for this white light to flow down deep into the ground, and then from there, just imagine your feet melting into the earth like you're standing on a sea of liquid energy. Comes up about the height of the ankles. Imagine next, roots growing out from the bottom of the feet, connecting you to the center core of the earth. Just feel the strong connection. From here, we're going to pull down the heavens 1 time. So we're going to inhale. And exhale. And then slowly open up your eyes and holding a ball. We're now going to press forward with the right arm, pulling back with the left, elongating. So you're going to squeeze through the midsection, pull back. So elongating the lateral rib cage, the lateral side of the body. And now with your breath, I want you to focus on the right side where the liver is located. And I want you to imagine a green cloud filling up into that right side. Now this liver is a big organ. And I want you to focus now on something that creates anger or resentment. Is there a person? Is there a situation? An institution? Anything that you hold hatred, anger, resentment towards, old anger. Feel it now. Who's involved? What's involved? And as you inhale, feel this green cloud fill up into the liver. As you exhale, imagine that anger floating away out the hands like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. And when we let go of this anger and this resentment, then the positive virtue of kindness, acceptance comes in its place. And then from here, we're going to pull that energy back in, pressing down, pulling down the heavens 1 time. Inhale. And then from here, like you're holding a ball, right hand on the bottom of the ball, left hand on top, we're going to shift over to our right. That right hand is going to come to the top, and then we're going to press. Now the left hand comes to the bottom of the ball. And then I come over to my right, my left here. Then I come, the right hand goes to the bottom, floats to the top as I shift to the right. Inhale, left hand's on the bottom. As I shift to the left, yes. Right hand, Okay, and if this is too complicated, you could just do like you're cradling a baby, and then you press. Now I'm focusing on the heart. Imagine a pink cloud filling up into the heart. As you inhale in the center, as you exhale, letting go of the emotions of abandonment, loneliness, or anything that may come up for you, a broken heart. And allow for that circumstance to leave like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. And when we let go of that abandonment, overjoy, overexcitation, mania, the positive virtue of love comes in. So as I inhale, that pink cloud fills up, and then as I exhale, I let go of the trauma. Allow the love to take the place. And then coming back to the middle, once again pulling down the heavens one time, inhale. And then from here, with your left arm shifting over to your right like you're cradling a beach ball, now working on our spleen and our pancreas, I'm going to then shift over to the left, transfer that ball to the opposite side, just gently gazing at the palm. But what I'm focusing on is on the left midsection of the body where your spleen is located. You don't have to know exactly where it's located, just imagine a yellow cloud filling up into the left side of the body. As you exhale, out through the bottom of the feet releases worry and anxiety. So if there's a situation that you're worried about, just allow for that to release out through the bottom of the feet. Something creates anxiety for you. When the worry leaves, the positive virtue of peace of mind and centeredness comes in its place. And then slowly come back to the center, pulling down again one time, inhale. And now from here, allow the hands to float up in front of the chest, now working with the lungs. As I inhale, I'm going to imagine a white cloud filling up into the lungs. As I exhale, closing the arms. Anything in my life that has created grief, sadness, sorrow, shame, or guilt, I want you to imagine that leaving out the hands like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body. And deep into the ground. So once again, to make this into a more of a mindfulness practice, you need to focus on the trauma. Feel it, who's involved, what's involved, and then as you inhale, that white cloud fills up into the lungs. As you exhale, you imagine that circumstance, that person, leaving out the hands like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. Bringing forth the positive virtue of courage. Doing 2 more. And then the last one, pull that white light into the lungs, press down, pulling down the heavens 1 time, inhale. And then from here, working on the kidney, placing the left hand on the right kidney, gazing at the back of the right hand. I'm going to bend at the waist like I'm scooping up water. Inhale, look at the back of the hand. Then as I bend at the waist, look at the palm. Looking at the back of the hand. Now you can imagine a blue cloud filling up into the kidneys. And then as you inhale on the top, the blue cloud fills up. And I want you to focus on any circumstance in your life that creates fear for you or shock. Any kind of shocking trauma that you've been through. Feel it now. And then as you exhale, releasing out through the bottom of the feet to deep into the ground. Now if you wanted to make this into more of a stretch, you obviously could stretch the hamstrings if you want to, but it's not necessary. So exhale, inhaling, pull the blue cloud in, exhale, let it go, the fear and the shock, the trauma. And then when we come around this last time, then when we come to the top, we're going to switch. And we let go of the fear, the positive virtue of kindness, gentleness, wisdom comes in. Doing 1 more circle. And then coming back, pulling down the heavens last time, 3 times, inhaling. Gathering. Third pull. Pulling in for human compassion and kindness towards one another. Just allow for that to seep into your tissues. And then from here, last practice, placing the hands over the lower dantian, 1 inch below the belly button or the lower abdomen. As you inhale with the eyes closed, imagine a white mystical pearl that forms underneath the hands, gathering the energy from the space around you. As you exhale, imagine this white light releases and restores the vitality of the kidneys on the low back opposite the belly button. Each time you inhale, the pearl gets thicker and brighter. And then as you exhale, this pearl releases the white light and restores the vitality and strength of the kidneys on the low back. Inhale. As you exhale, feel the warmth radiate around the waist to the kidneys. Last one, inhale. White light fills up, and then as you exhale, filling up into the kidneys. And then slowly open up your eyes, shaking out your feet. Okay, how does everybody feel? When people say, oh, well, Qigong and Tai Chi is this like weird mystic kind of thing and you have to believe in it for it to work, I say, no, you don't. Just go and do the practice. So some people say, okay, Chris, well, how did you get involved with it? Because believe it or not, for 21 years I was a butcher. I was actually a meat manager, and which is really funny because I didn't think I was going to get into Chinese medicine, but the anatomy of an animal is not much different from the anatomy of a human, right? So, you know, when I'm working on somebody, because I'm very hands-on with my patients, I know what the fascia smells like, tastes like. I don't want to get too graphic, but I know what the disease looks like inside the muscles, right, and such. And so what happened was that this is the old story. This is not the story that I identify with, but I grew up in a dysfunctional home, had my first first heart attack at age 17 from a meth overdose. Started doing speedballs, heroin, and coke at age 11 and a half or 12. But I was always one of those people who's very driven, very motivated. So, so I was still doing my AP studies and art in high school and such. But anyways, after the second heart attack, I realized that I was going to end up dead, in prison, or both. I had other health problems here too, as well as severe digestive problems, severe sinusitis. I lived on antibiotics and kale pectates and Tums. I'd eat something and, an hour or two later, depending on what it is, like if I ate an avocado, 2 hours later, I'd be in a fetal position in chronic pain. And I went through everything, upper GI, lower GI. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. In hindsight, after then going to school for Chinese medicine, now I know what was going on. But at the time, put myself into Taekwondo as a means to change my path. I started competing right away. And one night before a match, it was just a freak thing. I was kicked in the back and almost paralyzed from the waist down. Led me to this amazing doctor. And this doctor had a therapist working for her at the time, and this therapist, he was a martial artist, and he started talking to me about Qi, and I was like, yeah, right, there's no such thing as Qi. The closest Qi I'm going to get is like Cheez-Its and Cheese Whiz. Like no such thing as Qi. So anyways, back then nobody, this is over almost 30 years ago, nobody was talking about this stuff. And more and more people have heard of Tai Chi nowadays, but the practice of Qigong, most people have not heard of. And so anyways, I had nothing to lose. And so there's two other women in the class, and I just started doing these practices, by the way, which are not only in my book, but also for free on our YouTube channel. And I kid you not, after about 6 months, I couldn't tell you when things started to change, but it was all of a sudden the realization that, hey, when did I stop living on the Sudafed and the Actifed? When did I stop living on the Tums and the kale pectate all the time? So I couldn't tell you exactly when it changed, but I realized that it did change. And so probably about a year after practicing, my OCD tendencies, now I didn't have severe OCD to where I could walk over a crack or something like that, but I was somebody definitely checking the stove 100 times or checking the oven to make sure that it was off 100 times. I thought, man, if a gentle movement and meditation, not just a meditation like, oh, imagine yourself floating on a leaf, floating down a river, but a specific meditation could do that, make that kind of change inside my body, there must be something to the medicine. So then that's when I started to go to school for traditional Chinese medicine. Like I said, first and foremost is to give you guys practices that you can apply to your own life, but then be able to share this with somebody else. Because when we talk about physical fitness and we talk about health, it's a combination of the internal and the external. What was interesting, going back to my back injury, was that doctors were saying that, well, Chris might not be able to walk again. As things continue to improve, it was, well, Chris will be able to walk, but he'll never train again. Then it was, well, okay, well, Chris will train again, but he'll never fight again. And I did my last amateur kickboxing match at age 40. I used to also fight with Tai Chi in tournaments as well, too. Most people don't know that Tai Chi is a martial art. It's really funny when I say that I used to fight with Tai Chi in tournaments, people go, what do you do? Do you say, tag, you're it? And like, no, man, the slow movements, anyways, I'll get into that stuff later. How to be able to help your clients at a deeper level. I'm going to be talking about how stress and negative emotion, now don't get me wrong, I still train Muay Thai and I still love lifting weights and that kind of stuff. I still like to run and all that kind of stuff. But, and I see it in my clinical practice a lot where somebody's physically fit, but they're still dying of carotid artery disease. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to show you how your stress and your emotions actually will affect the internal organism, which will show up as disease. And how is this applicable to you? Because I know in my own clinical practice, and I see a lot of trainers that come in, when you're a trainer, a lot of times you become kind of like a therapist to your clients, right? So they share their stories with you and stuff like that. And so when somebody says, for example, I can't lift today because the bench press that we did or the shoulder shrugs that we did caused my shoulder to ache. And I'm going to come back to this in a little bit, but every single person who I've ever seen come in with a shoulder injury or cervical issues of the neck, they can't turn their head, they normally blame their mattress, they normally blame their pillow. The common thread with those people is that some kind of emotion that affected the heart. They got in a fight with their spouse, suppress it. The dog ran away, suppress it. So the body says, okay, well, you pretend like that didn't bother you, but guess what? we're going to show you. Okay, so it has to show itself. Unless you're doing jiu-jitsu and someone popped your shoulder out, you're a pitcher, you popped your shoulder out, or you got into a car accident, and from the car accident, immediately from the car accident, not 2 weeks later, but immediately, then that's a different story. Okay, but also what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you these tools and practices. I'm going to show you the difference between Tai Chi and Qigong. But these tools and practices that you can apply to yourself, but then more importantly, is you got to spread it forward and then give it to the people that you work with. Okay, so today what we're going to be covering is what is proper posture, what does that look like, what is Eastern philosophy and practices. We're going to talk about what is known as the 5 elements in the 5-element quiz. We're going to talk about the diseases that arise from stress and negative emotions, deviation, so when you deviate from your element typology, as well as modifications, like what does it look like when you're in your power. We're going to bring you back to that. And then from here, we're going to teach you some of these practices that you can take home today and actually begin utilizing right away. And then we'll go ahead and wrap up with questions and answers. But anybody ever heard of Qigong before? How many people have heard of Qigong? Comme si, comme soi. It's funny because people call our office and say, yes, because it's spelled Qigong, and they'll say, yes, I'm inquiring about that Qigong class. Like, where's Qui? Who is she? Did she gong? Okay, so I want you to check in with yourself right now. And I'd like for you just to kind of take a mental note as to how you're feeling. Just kind of think about, like, how's your body feeling? Do you have any aches or pains anywhere? How's your thought process? How's your digestion? How'd you sleep last night? Just kind of how's your mood overall in general? Just, if you were to gauge it right now, just kind of take a mental note to yourself, because we're going to come back to this at the very end here. When we talk about proper posture, in Chinese philosophy, it's called Wuji. It's spelled W-U-J-I. And what does it simply translate as? It simply translates as nothingness or emptiness. Amateur kickboxing matches, we start across the ring from our opponent. With Tai Chi, I actually start off touching my opponent. As soon as I touch my opponent, I can feel where he's holding tension in his body, and when the referee blows the whistle, my job is then to attack that area and then throw him off the Lei-Tai, whether it's a knee break, arm, wrist break, whatever, and throw him off the Lei-Tai. So it's like, well, how can you actually feel somebody? Well, through those gentle movements, what happens is that all those movements that are found in Tai Chi are actually fighting applications. And what it does is that to be able to move like that in a certain form sequence teaches you first how to listen to your own body. And when you listen to your own body, believe it or not, you do that enough, and they call it listening, but when you touch somebody, you can actually listen to them. And I'm pretty sure everybody in this room could say, I've walked into a room, just looked at somebody and felt their bad vibe, or felt off the good, intentions they have. I'm not different than anybody else in this room. We all have those experiences, right? But what Tai Chi and Qigong does is that it actually enhances this ability to become more aware. And the more aware that you become, guess what? The stronger that you actually become. The style of Tai Chi that I trade is the oldest style of Tai Chi. It's from the Chen family. And there's still a Chen village, Hunan province in China. It's a very poor province. And they train their Tai Chi like a full-time job. You get up at 5 a.m., you train from 5 to 8, you have breakfast from 8 to 9, you train then from 9 to noon, lunches from noon to 1, then you train from 1 to 5. And either that or you go work in the fields. And a lot of those guys are not that big. They're short like I am, but probably like $130, 135 pounds, 140 pounds at the most. But they're strong, but it's a different kind of strength. It's a different kind of strength. It was what we call as an internal strength. A few years back with my teachers group by Sifu Tony Wong out of San Francisco, we sent a few guys back to go compete, and this guy Dan Gear, he's probably about 210, 6'1", going against this guy that was probably about 5'9", I'd say about 140 pounds. And this guy, 140 pounder, broke Dan's sternum with his shoulder, with a shoulder strike. I know it's hard to believe, but this is what we're talking about. So they say that External martial arts would be like kickboxing, Sanshou, Taekwondo, Muay Thai, those types of arts. Internal martial arts would be then what we call as Tai Chi, like I'm talking about. Another system called Bagua, Xingyi, another system called Yichuan. These are all internal, meaning they're focusing on internal power, not brute strength. Not brute strength. And so this posture, this Wu Ji posture, because later on we're going to demonstrate it as a group as we go to practice here, but this Wu Ji posture, you achieve the state of emptiness. You stand in this posture, it seems like I'm non-substantial in this posture. I start off like Shelby here, she's showing the posture. Our feet are about shoulders width apart, our knees are slightly bent, because anytime you lock a joint out, and lock your elbow out, lock your knees out, believe it or not, it actually traps blood and fluids into those joints. It actually makes the joint a lot weaker. But if it's unlocked, then the blood and the fluids could flow uninterrupted and more easily, okay? So my knees are slightly bent. Now the caveat here is that I'm tucking my sacrum underneath. And when I tuck my sacrum underneath, then what happens is that it presses back an acupuncture point right opposite the belly button in between the left and the right kidney. So this helps to elongate and strengthen the lower lumbar. Then from here, I gently tuck the chin, which then presses up the crown point of the top of the head, which now what's happening is that I'm elongating the lower lumbar, thoracic, and cervical spine, and I'm hollowing out the armpits here, and I'm relaxed. And again, it doesn't really seem like much, but it actually really is. Can I borrow you a second? Yeah, what's your name?
Jesse.
Jesse, thank you for coming, Jesse. Okay, so I just want you to place your arm on your hand on my shoulder here. Okay. Now I'm going to stand in this posture here, and when now most people have this S-curve spine, right? Like especially in gymnastics, you really see that S-curve spine. Well, what I'm telling you to do is roll that sacrum underneath. Here, now when Jesse starts to push in on me, so he starts to feel me, right? You feel me, right? So see, I'm relaxed here. So he pushes harder. Now he's pushing pretty hard here, right? Yeah, good. Yeah, see? But I'm still relaxed. What I'm doing is I'm taking his intention in and I'm actually dropping it into the ground. I'm able to do that simply by tucking that sacrum underneath. Now, I want you to put one arm here, and I want you to push straight in on me. So again, if I was tense, then my hand here would be tense too. Can you feel me? Yeah. All right, thank you so much. And it's funny because last week I did a post of this on Instagram. I was teaching a Qigong class I teach for the public, and I was talking about this Wu Ji posture for my Qigong class, right? And I did a post on Instagram, and I decided to promote it just to see what would happen. Oh my God, I got so much negative publicity. It was unbelievable because they're saying that I was trying to demonstrate. I don't know if anybody's ever seen like those videos of people, of the Kung Fu masters who go like this, and the person goes like this. So I was being accused of demonstrating that, and finally a couple people finally chimed in and said, hey, if you listen to what he's saying, he's not telling the student to roll over on the ground and point his fingers at him like they do, those mysticism type things, right? But as you felt, right, really solid, right? Now if I was to stand in with this S-curve spine again, guess what? I become very weak. I become softer. Actually, I'm sorry. Can we try it again? I want to do it with the S-curve spine. I want you to feel the difference, right? Okay, so place your hand here. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to stand how people normally stand. Okay, so he pushes in. So see, now look what happens. Look, I become softer, right? Yeah. You feel that? You feel the difference? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's try it this way here. So I'm going to not stand in posture, right? So I push. He pushes. So again, look. So here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, feel the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Okay. So anyways, what I'm demonstrating here is that with proper body mechanics and proper alignment, if you understand this. Now, where else? So we call it Wu Ji in the Chinese systems. Where else do we see this? You know where else do we see this? Hockey. Anytime they go to hit the puck. Golf. Tennis players. Baseball players. Muay Thai fighters, because if the guard for the Muay Thai fighter is like this, believe it or not, if your sacrum is not tucked, it's easier for the opponent to punch between the guard as opposed to if your sacrum is tucked. So in baseball, hockey, all those other sports I was talking about, they don't call it Wu Ji, but if you see still shots of a baseball player hitting the ball, you will see that sacrum is actually tucked underneath. You become much stronger when you understand physical posture. When I first met Parisa 11 years ago, she was doing a functional movement course with the Gary Gray Institute. And what I loved about Gary Gray is that, man, this man's knowledge, he allowed me, when they went in for their last weekend workshop to wrap up 10 months of study, what I loved about this man is, oh my gosh, he could talk, because he's a physical therapist, but he could talk. He knew how the body moved in the frontal, sagittal planes, the transverse planes. Like, he knew how every bone moved and everything. I thought it was amazing, just the amount of knowledge that he had on the structure of the body and in movement, what was happening with the body. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when you are a newborn baby learns how to sit in this Wuji posture. Because when a newborn baby learns how to sit up, they have to have that sacrum slightly tucked. Otherwise, because their head is so much bigger, they just keep on falling over, right? But what happens is that due to stress, due to lifestyle habits, dietary habits, lack of exercise or whatever, or improper techniques that are being taught in whatever sports that you're doing, then we lose that natural structure. Of all the diseases that I see, because people fly me around the country to see patients as well. Of all the diseases that I see, and I see things like lupus, Lyme, fibromyalgia, Meniere's disease, but of all the diseases that I see, back issues are number one. You know, and it was crazy because they were flying me out to Chicago and I was seeing these young basketball players. They have a chance to play for the NBA and the doctors are diagnosing them with lumbar stenosis and say, you know what, your basketball career is over with. You're never going to play a ball again. And I have video of it on my YouTube channel. You see me have these guys running in 15 minutes. And it's not magic, it's just understanding how the body functions. And so I was flying back one time, you know, and aging myself here. So back in the 70s, the only people that got back issues were couch potatoes or people that were obese. Those were the main people that got back issues. So I couldn't figure out why nowadays, because in San Jose, yes, I see in San Jose, California, I see a lot of high-tech folks, but also I see a lot of professional MMA fighters because San Jose is actually the mecca for mixed martial arts. And so these professional athletes are coming in with lumbar stenosis, a blown disc, and you know, it didn't make any sense to me. Yes, I'm seeing the couch potatoes too, but it didn't. Nowadays, the back issues don't discriminate between young or old. Doesn't matter if you're the athlete or the couch potato. It is affecting everybody. And when I say back issues, I'm talking about hip pain. I'm talking about lower lumbar pain, bulging discs, sciatic nerve issues, like I said, lumbar stenosis. So you know what I realized flying back from Chicago one time was that, wow, this area here, so normally the telltale sign before the back issue shows up is people have pain in their groin. And this is your psoas muscle, and you all know what the psoas muscle is. This is your fight or flight muscle. This is the muscle that if somebody was attacking you, allows you to curl up into a ball right away. In San Jose, I see a lot of men, they're coming back from the Middle East because they're fighting a war that nobody's talking about. And the way that we fix back issues is we start off first by working on the groin here. And you know, I'll hit these points on the groin and I'll have an immediate emotional breakdown. So what I realized is that, and I'm going to go into this deeper as we get into specific diseases, but that your sympathetic nervous system, you know, that fight or flight part of the nervous system, this psoas is triggered by that sympathetic nervous system. So that sympathetic nervous system, for those of you that don't know its function, is responsible for, you know, you being chased by a bear. Your house is on fire, for you to get up out of Dodge and get the heck out of the house, right? And so this nervous system, when God, the all-knowing, whatever you want to call it for yourself, developed us is for that reason. But you know what's going on nowadays? Is that, especially in big cities, is that sympathetic nervous system does not know the difference between being chased by a bear, running late for an appointment, being behind on paying your bills, something going on in your environment, and so guess what? It's getting stored right here. Yes, true, if you have improper body alignment, let's say if you're lifting, doing deadlifts and your structure is not correct, sure, you're going to mess up your back, obviously. But it doesn't make sense when you see someone that's fit 20, at that age end up with lumbar stenosis. And by the way, for those of you who don't know what lumbar stenosis is, a stenosis is anytime there's a closing. So like you could have like a stenosis of the artery walls, for example. Okay, so lumbar stenosis, what happens is that you have this spinal canal that comes out of the spine, where the nerves that come out, depending on where it is, and that actually will control different areas of the body. Control the things like your breathing, influence things like digestion, elimination, all that kind of stuff. So when there's a stenosis, depending on where that comes out, and we normally see it in the lower lumbar, or we normally see it in the cervical spine. What that means is that opening now has closed up. And this is what's causing the nerve impingement, which then causes the pain, which then causes the degeneration. So a condition, for example, like drop leg syndrome, for example, that condition, which is not curable in Western medicine, though we fix it in our clinic. Drop leg syndrome means, okay, now that nerve has been impinged so much that guess what? There is no communication. And I call it chi. You can call it what you want. There's no chi movement, there's an impingement of blood flow, there's now impingement of the fluids, and what happens is the leg atrophies, and then what happens is when the person walks, that leg actually drops. They have no control over it. And once the muscle starts to atrophy, guess what? It's very hard to reverse that condition. So in this posture here, you can actually do it from a seated position too. Into my chair, and then my feet out, shoulders width apart, and then again I just tuck that sacrum underneath. And by gently doing that, you might feel some relief off that L4, L5 region there. Okay, so it's something very simple to do. So if you're somebody that's behind a desk or you're sitting too much, this is something that you go ahead and start to practice. Now if you roll that sacrum, you may start to notice, yeah, I feel a little bit of tension on the back, or I may feel, and then from here my chin is once again gently going to tuck underneath, which then presses up on the crown point and the top of the head. If you were to do any type of meditation or anything like that, this would be the proper way to sit. It takes a while to retrain your body to do this. As easy as I'm making it look standing here, it's actually not that easy to do. Okay, so anyways, but if you're sitting on the desk, if you're somebody who has desk work, this is how you would properly sit in order to be able to allow for this movement, free movement of blood and fluid, and alleviate the pressure off the lower lumbar, to be able to enhance your ability to sit longer without creating disease or stagnation in the body. I always say this: trust but verify. So after today's class, start looking at pictures of baseball players and hockey players, Muay Thai fighters, or any type of fighter who's in the guard position, and you're going to see that sacrum is tucked underneath. The second regulation to practicing Qigong and Tai Chi is the regulation of breath. Most of us, when we breathe up into our chest, yes. And the reason why is, once again, poor lifestyle habits, poor dietary habits, and emotional stress and trauma. The problem when we stop deep breathing into our lower abdomen is that the micro and macro elements of that deep breathing that massage the internal organs does not happen. So simple things that we take for granted too, like elimination, secretion, then guess what? There's now an impingement of that too. Once again, going back to a newborn baby, they come into this world just I wish that all of us could be like this, because then, it'd be a much happier place to be around. But a newborn baby, he or she will breathe into his or her stomach. You will watch the abdomen expand and contract. Adults don't. So one of the practices that I recommend, and I'm going to walk you guys through this when we get into our flow here in a little bit, is what I call is the white pearl meditation. It's in my book. It's also available on iTunes. Anyways, the white pearl meditation is twofold. Number one, to get you out of your head and back into your body. Number two, to refocus you, to retrain you how to breathe naturally again. Number three is to be able to help to increase the functionality of the kidneys, because the kidneys are responsible really for how long our life will be. So at the time of conception, between your parents, God, your environment, this predetermines your kidney well. It's like a battery. The kidneys are the foundation. Besides secretion and excretion and your adrenal system and such, the kidneys are actually responsible for your bones and your bone marrow, your reproductive system. It's the foundation for the formation of blood and fluids in the body, all the fluids in the body, cerebral fluids, spinal fluids, etc. It connects to your ears. It also, your hair. So what's interesting to me is that, and you can look this up too, is that in utero, as the fetus is forming, as the kidneys grow, guess what? The ears grow at the same time. And for some reason, once the baby's born, we lose the connection that the kidneys had any kind of influence over the ears. So guess what? If somebody has vertigo, which is also referred to as Meniere's disease, if somebody has tinnitus or ringing of the ears, they only want to treat the ears. You have to look at the kidneys. And chances are, if you were to ask the person, well, what has been going on in your life prior to this ringing of the ears coming up for you, chances are, if they are really honest, they say, oh, I'm under a lot of stress. Because guess what? That will injure the kidneys. I'm not getting enough sleep. Oh, that will injure the kidneys as well too. So understanding this stuff when you see your clients, and I'm hoping that you guys internalize some of this stuff for yourself, but when you see your clients and they start talking to you, start to open up the possibility in the conversation that there's other things going on deeper inside the body, and that the Meniere's, the tinnitus, the ringing, the dizziness is just a manifestation of something deeper inside the body. So breath. That white pearl meditation is great. Can I have a volunteer? So it's like a balloon, okay? So I want you to place one hand here. I want you to feel. But as you felt, it was like a balloon.
Well, we learn belly breathing, we don't learn back.
Back breathing, correct. You felt it's all sides. So as I'm breathing, my lower abdomen is like a balloon, expanding all directions, okay? The other thing too with natural breathing too, because yoga has different types of breathing techniques, and Qigong does too, but natural breathing, we normally tell the practitioner to breathe through their nose. You know why? Because you can regulate the flow of qi better. So when after my initial back injury in Taekwondo at age, 18, 19 years old, I thought my martial arts career was pretty much done. And so I'd focus on studying Chinese medicine, practicing Qigong and those kinds of things. And then I didn't start competing again until actually like 29 or 30. The few fights that I did with kickboxing, I was with Kung Lee's fight team. And Kung Lee's a professional UFC fighter, Vietnamese, one of the only Vietnamese fighters. And anyways, to get ready for the match, because also we do things like smokers, where like if you fight and you win that match, then you have to keep fighting, right? So in order to keep your cardio, because you only have 1 minute to regather yourself between rounds, right? So one of the first things that he would have us do is he'd have us go to the gym and get on the elliptical. We go as fast as we could on the elliptical and then shadow box. So 30 seconds, back off, shadow box. 30 seconds, do this for 15 minutes. The caveat though, is that you had water in your mouth the whole time. You have to just breathe through your nose. Try it, it feels like you're going to drown. And so the reason why he was having us do that was so that way with that 1 minute rest in between rounds, we could regain our breath quicker. I hear there's read about certain tribes in Africa, for example, where the kids will run and they will do that and run fast and they will do that. And the thing of it is that our country, we've seemed to lost sight of how to understand our bodies, but how to really understand how breath work works, how posture works. And then the third regulation is mind intent. Most of us are stuck up here in our minds a lot. And so we have a saying in Tai Chi and Qigong that the imagination leads the mind and the mind leads the smooth flow of the Qi. And what that means is if you have no idea what Qi is, and spelled different ways. CHI is the American way of spelling it, or QI. What Qi is just think of it in terms of blood or fluids. Think about it. If you're anemic, if your blood is weak, guess what? You have no Qi, right? You hemorrhage, you have diabetes, which is considered an exhaustion disease in Chinese medicine, then guess what? You actually will lose that ability because the blood has become so deficient. So we have a saying that the blood contains the Qi, and the Qi moves the blood around the body. Eastern philosophy, it's really about being in balance with the whole. For example, we are not independent from each other. We are all interconnected with each other and everything else around us. I don't care what anybody says. We are all connected to each other, and we are affected by what happens in our environment. Clinical textbooks in Chinese medicine, there's one clinical textbook called The Yellow Emperor's Classic of Difficulties. And in that textbook, it talks about diseases that arise when seasons are out of season. So for example, in the Bay Area, we were having an issue around September, October, where that should be like towards the Indian summer months, right? We were having an issue where it was freezing cold at night and then hot during the day. So guess what happened? Well, when it gets cold like that, and people don't realize this, but bacteria and viruses come alive when it gets cold. And then it got hot, and then those bacteria and viruses begin to multiply. So we were having this flu epidemic that was going around that was just crazy because, and it's still going on. We're coming down to the last end of it now, but people were getting sick because it was unseasonal for that weather combination to be how it's supposed to be. Things too, like we take for granted, like food. Yes, we understand the nutritional properties of food, but I'll give you an example. During certain times of the year, certain organs are more prone to disease, and I'm just going to talk about the heart. The heart is most prone to disease during the summer months, and if you go to the CDC's website, you'll see the most heart attacks actually will happen in the summer months. That's not by accident. Why is that? Because the heart does not like summer heat. Like right now we're in the winter months, and the winter months the kidneys are most prone to disease, and the kidneys do not like cold. So if you pay attention to the fruits and vegetables at your farmer's market that are organically grown, they're grown because, once again, nature, this all-knowingness, understands that the higher level of consciousness that we put into our bodies affects us, and the seasons also affect us as well too. And so I'll give you an example. So what's present? So in order to treat hot, you have to what? Cool it down. You do its opposite. So the energetic properties of watermelon, cherries, which are found in the summer months, is not by accident, because the properties of the foods themselves are cooling in nature, which then will help to actually reduce the summer heat. And we're not even getting into the emotions. We're just talking about the effects of the environment right now. And I'll give you an example. So let's say somebody's vomiting. Well, there's two types. Well, let's say somebody's profusely vomiting with severe cramps and they're in the fetal position and they're shaking and stuff like that. Well, that means that there's too much cold in their stomach. So you don't want to give them Gatorade. No, that's going to make them throw up even worse. What you're going to do is you want to warm the stomach. Ginger is naturally warming. So with those symptoms, you would give somebody ginger in small sips in order to stop or push the cold out of the system. Now, if somebody was stretched out and vomiting every once in a while, that means if they're stretched out like that, like kicking off the bed covers and everything, that means there's too much heat inside their body. So energetically, you give them mint. So you see how you use the foods according to what its property is, beyond what its nutritional facts are, but what is its properties. So when we look at Eastern philosophy, we take in everything into account. Everything. The weather, and when we talk about food too, we take into account not only the foods that we're putting into our bodies, but how that we're cooking them. So for example, if you're somebody who has eczema, which is I'm talking about eczema where it's dry and flaky, not the red, that's different, but just dry and flaky. That means that the lungs are weak, okay? So The lungs do not like the climatic condition of dryness, and the lungs are most prone to disease during the fall and autumn months when it's normally drier, right? And what do people, it starts getting cooler, people start turning on their heaters, which makes more dryness, right? So cooking methods, if you have eczema, or if you get eczema during the fall or winter months, then you want to have foods, you want to cook foods in a braising method or a boiling method, a steaming method, because that's moist in nature. You do not want to sit there and barbecue or bake or broil, because what's going to happen is that you're actually going to enhance that drying effect inside the body. So when we look at the practice of Qigong itself, it's based upon the 5 elements. We already talked about the martial arts school, which are any form of internal martial arts, like I talked about, like Tai Chi, for example. Spiritual school is any school of thought where the person understands that it's their responsibility to refine themselves and not to put the blame on some external force. The medical school is acupuncture, medical Qigong, Tui Na, cupping, moxibustion. That's what the medical school would be. And then the 5 elements school. This gets very, very deep, but for simplicity, I'm only going to be talking in terms of the 5 major internal organs today. No matter how simplistic a movement is, no matter how simplistic a meditation is, everything that I'm going to be teaching you is meant to do something medicinally inside your body. Well, you say, well, I'm more a sports enthusiast, Chris. You know, I don't want to hear about this stuff about disease and, you know, what's going on inside of here. But you know what? Phil Jackson is one of the most winningest coaches in all of history. He has the most rings of any coach. He's with the Chicago Bulls and the Lakers. And what he would have is, I saw him speak 2 years ago, and 3 years ago in San Francisco at the Wisdom 2 conference. He was one of the keynote speakers. And Phil Jackson says his belief, the reason why he won so much is because he'd have his players lay on the court and visualize how they were going to play before the game, how they were going to feel during the game, how they were going to feel after the game. He'd have them visualize it, having fun while they were doing it, and guess what? They would go out there and win. So when we talk about this mindfulness revolution, John Kabat-Zinn, who started the mindfulness revolution, who was the first physician to actually really talk about it and write papers on it, and other physicians at the time, I believe it was in the 70s, early 70s, when writing papers on it, and other physicians thought, well, this guy's nuts, he's off his rocker. But this mindfulness revolution is understanding that we have to look inside to really understand. We see it down here. There's a lot of beautiful bodies down there. But how healthy are they? It's a combination. It's the internal and the external, because nobody normally talks about what's going on with these internal organs. You know, we think, okay, our heart beats, you know, our stomach digest helps assimilate food or whatever. But, you know, we understand in Chinese medicine the physiology of the internal organs according to science. I understand what their functions are, but according to Chinese medicine, for example, your liver has over 700 functions. 700 functions. And so in that textbook I was talking about, the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Difficulties, one of the captions, it says in one opening of one of the chapters, it says, the superior doctor is one that can prevent disease before disease sets in. So the idea of this is that you become in a way your own superior doctor, right? If you wake up and your shoulder's hurting, check in with yourself. What is happening emotionally with me maybe 2 days before or day before? You know, if I sit up or if I'm waking up at 1 to 3 a.m. in the morning, guess what? That's your liver talking to you. So if you're having insomnia and waking up at that time, so we're going to get into that in a second. The other thing that the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Difficulty said is that to prevent disease after disease sets in is like forging one's weapons after the war has already begun, or digging a well after one has become thirsty. Wouldn't that be too late? So the idea here is don't wait till it's too late. Don't wait till it's too late. You know, our bodies are always talking to us. You know that little eye tremor? Has anybody ever got that little eye tremor? It normally happens at the most inappropriate time, like when you're face to face with somebody and you think, oh my God, I hope that she does not see that happening right now. That little eye tremor could be just a gentle little warning that, you know what, there's something kind of going on here, some stress going on in your life. Or it could be a warning sign that there could be something bigger, especially if it continues for months. It would be a warning sign. And in that case, I normally suggest to my clients that they see their primary, have their carotid arteries tested, just to make sure. It could be the warning sign of trigenital facial neuralgia, which, if you don't know what that is one of the most painful nerve conditions known in Western medicine. It's when the nerves of the face just seize up and they can't get it. No steroid shot could get it to relax. They call it the suicide disease because most people that have it kill themselves because the pain is so unbearable. So understanding we could be physically fit and we could be eating right and stuff, but if we're not paying attention, and this is what we're here for, this is why I'm glad that you guys showed up today, is because what I'm about, what my wife and I are about in our message is to empower people to be able to understand their bodies at a deeper level in a way that makes sense. You don't have to be Chinese. I'm as far as from Chinese as possible. Actually, my roots, my family's from Panama. My real last name is actually, I just found out, is actually Rodriguez. She's been calling me C-Rod for the last 3 months now. This quiz is going to show you is not only what your personality type is, but what organ governs you. Believe it or not, a certain organ governs you. And it's when you deviate from the personality type of that specific organ that it starts to indicate disease. So the whole thing here is okay, how can we educate people? How can we educate people that these organs are actually have a much greater functionality? You know, for example, fire type. A fire type, that means that the heart governs them. And Parisa's a fire type. You see her, she's always giggling and laughing all the time. Kind of manic sometimes. If you sit behind her on a computer screen, she'll have like 50 windows open all at once and going from one thing to the next. That's a fire type. That's just what they do. Like, that's just part of the fire nature. So I'm a wood type, which relates to the liver and the gallbladder, okay? So wood types, we tend to be natural leaders. You know, civil servants, wood people make good civil servants, like police officers, you know, managers. Earth type relates to your stomach and spleen. And these people are like the humanitarians. Earth type people, their stomach and spleen governs them. So you think about earth as what nurturing. When we eat something, it's nurturing, right? So earth person is a very nurturing person. They would make a great HR person in a business because if you have conflicting sides, the earth typology would be able to see both sides effectively and evenly without taking judgment. Metal people, it means that their lungs govern them. Princess Diana reminds me of is a metal type. They're very poised. How they look, they're very smart. They tend to hold their emotions, especially sadness, close to their chest. They won't show it, but yet they're very good at, you know, also at running businesses and organizing. They're very detailed orientated. Okay, but it means their lungs govern them. The water type means this is the kidneys and the bladder. They're very intelligent, so the wisdom, they're very wise, they're very knowledgeable. They seek deeper understanding of how the planets move, and also are pretty steadfast people when they're in balance. When they're out of balance, then what happens is then they become very lazy. Each of these organs are affected by a different emotion. Normally, scientifically, if you talk about stress, they just call it stress. They don't break it up into sadness, grief, or sorrow, or into like loss or disappointment, or no, they just say, oh, well, it's stress. So the heart is the emperor, empress of the body. It dictates how much an emotion will be expressed or suppressed. And there's a group of scientists actually in Santa Cruz called Heart Math that are actually proving that our consciousness is here. Scientifically, they were saying for many, many years, as in this frontal cortex here, this is where our consciousness is. You know, and it's quite interesting because I don't know if anybody knows who Deepak Chopra is, but Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle were doing a talk together at the Shrine Auditorium here. There's 2 chairs between them. There's a little table with a flower. And Deepak, who's a physician, he's an MD, right? He says, I want you to look at this table. And he goes, I want you to study the flower on the table. He said this to the sold out audience. So everybody studies the flower, obviously. He says, okay, now everybody close your eyes. So everybody closed their eyes. And he goes, can everybody see the flower with your eyes closed? And everybody nodded yes, or said yes. He said, okay, open up your eyes. He said, nowhere inside your brain is there a flower. Therefore, what does this mean? This means your brain is just a reflection of your reality. It's just a reflection. This group of scientists in Santa Cruz, HeartMath, is actually proving that when people give a sincere hug, if anybody's ever hugged me, I'm a hugger. Like, I hug. Like, people say, God, Chris, you don't know your own strength. But no, I'm not talking like a half-arm hug like this, but I'm talking like a full hug, that actually both hearts actually will move closer to each other. So the heart is affected, though, by overexcitation, mania, abandonment, loneliness, and a lack of joy. But if you think about it, if you get angry at something, what happens? Your heart races. You get fearful of something, your heart races. You're worried about something, your heart races. You're grieving somebody, a loss, a loved one, what happens? Your heart hurts, right? So your heart dictates how much is going to be expressed or suppressed. And you can actually tell the strength, and they have a saying that the heart houses the mind, which then houses the spirit, which is your shen, your spirit. And you can tell the strength of one's spirit by looking at their eyes. The brighter somebody's eyes are, the stronger their spirit is. So you see somebody, let's say on the street, talking to themselves, and if you look at their eyes, chances are they're going to have a dull haze over their eyes. Why? Because the heart orifices have been congested. So the mind, they say, the heart orifices have been congested, so the mind has no place to reside. You know, too much joy, you know you could actually die of a heart attack from laughing too hard? Yes, it's crazy. And I didn't understand it either. And then a few years ago, I was a judge at the UC Berkeley Chinese martial arts competition, and this young lady, about 23 years old, she had just won, first time competing, she had won gold. The judges, I know CPR, there was EMTs on site there, paramedics on site. The judges called her up to the ring to get her medal. She started to run down the bleachers. Her family, out of pure excitement, started cheering, you know, and then the father, out of pure excitement, died right there. And it was a horrible thing, because as she was running down the bleachers, his body was rolling behind her. And so it made sense then. And what happened was that he was so overwhelmed with joy. Now, chances are also he might have added some other heart thing going on with him too, right? Because laughter is actually a good thing. But, you know, what's funny is that the healing sound for the heart, because there's different sounds for these organs, is ha, like laughing. Ha. Because if you think about it, if you have a laughing attack at something, what's the first thing you do? Right? Or if you lost a loved one, had a breakup, or your dog had to be put to sleep or ran away, the person sighs a lot. Or they yawn a lot. Why? Because the heart is trying to regain balance again. So actually, there's a Qigong practice that's in my book, and we also have it on YouTube. It's called the dry cry, where you actually make that sound. And as goofy as it may seem, guess what? Instead of you holding on to the vibration of whatever it is that's made you sad, you actually start to release it, which then gives you the ability to truly start to heal. Okay? So you can, and the cool thing about it too is that normally I recommend with my patients that they do it audibly. So the difference between this and conventional therapy is sometimes you go to conventional therapy and it's like they pick off the scab because they want you to revisit the situation, but then there's not much to help fix the wound underneath. So I want you to pick off the scab by revisiting it, but then I want you to do the sound. And as you inhale, because the color red or color pink is associated with the heart, I want you to inhale, feel that pink cloud fill up into the heart. Then as you exhale, Imagine the circumstance leaving like a dark cloud going several feet away from the body and into the ground. So I would sit there and I go, ah, and I do this over and over again. And now most of us have traumas that have accumulated. One of the ways that I diagnose is I could read a person's face. Every line, every feature on your face tells me a story of how you think, what your personality is, what element you are, what traumas you've been through, and more importantly, what potential diseases are lying in your body. The face does not lie. The face tells you everything. And so, a case study, this gal, she was a personal trainer, 49 years old, or 50. She looked great. I'll just say her name was Sue. So Sue came in and for back issues. And on the first assessment, because one of the cool things is I could diagnose from the pulse also, your tongue, your belly button. And on the first assessment, I said, well, we'll go ahead and fix your back. But I said, you have to deal with all that resentment that you have towards men. She goes, I dealt with that years ago. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So I just typed my notes, my soap notes, right? So we fixed her back, and then she would come in for, cold, flu, or whatever, this tweak, that tweak, whatever. And then about a year or so later, she came in, something I saw on her tongue, something that she said to me, and something I saw on her face. I said, I need you to make an appointment with your primary physician. I want your carotid arteries looked at. She goes, you're crazy. She goes, look at me. She goes, I have almost 0% body fat. I work out 1 to 2 hours every day. I eat healthy. I said, well, legally by law, I'm required to say this. I'm putting it in your notes. It's up to you what you do with it. 2 weeks later, she was in my office in the lobby in tears. And she said, I want to thank you for saving my life. She said, both my carotid arteries are 70% blocked. So she's eating right and she's exercising. Once again, what was the one thing she was now looking at? Lucky for her and I is that her physician worked with me. We worked together, him and I. He didn't put her on any medications. We changed her diet according to Chinese nutrition, put her on a certain herbal regimen, gave her these Qigong practices and then occasional treatments and then checkups with him. And in 1 year, she had the all clear. It's not magic. The heart. The positive virtue, though, when the heart's in balance, is love. So if a person obviously has a hard time loving because they've been hurt or injured too much, I know that. I was there quite a while. I visited that territory for quite a while. Like, you're not getting in here. I have a shield. The spleen, though, the negative emotions of worry, anxiety, pensiveness, over-intellectualizing, thinking too much, weakens your digestion. So when we talk about the spleen in here, it also includes the pancreas and the stomach, okay? So overthinking things will make it weak. Positive virtue, though, when the spleen is in balance, is that the person is peaceful, has peace of mind. They have this overall sense of serenity, right? Because they're not playing this all the time. And by the way, going back to this, if somebody ever says to me, Chris, I cannot meditate. I'm like, well, you know what? If you could worry, you can meditate. Because if you're worrying, all you're doing is you're taking a thought, you're playing it over and over and over again, and it's just not constructive though, but you're meditating, you're just not on something positive. So you can meditate. You just have to retrain the thinking sometimes. Okay, so the lungs work with the large intestine. So the emotions of sadness, grief, sorrow, and disappointment, loss, shame, guilt attack the lungs. So I'll see somebody in clinic, for example, just lost a loved one, like their parent just passed away, and all of a sudden develop an unproductive dry cough. The unproductive dry cough is the grief actually stuck in their lungs. It's not a miraculous asthma or an allergy. No, it's not. And so it upsets me. And don't get me wrong, I'm very much into integrative medicine. There's things that science can do that is unbelievable. Where I have the problem is when they're prescribing when they don't understand the situation. They don't know. Or they're prescribing antidepressant medications because they can't find the answer to your pain. That's when I have the problem. Or if they just want to cut something out. I had a bodybuilder, he owns weight bodybuilding nutrition stores in the Bay Area there, come in, and he's having all this like a colitis and irritable bowel and stuff, and doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. They actually wanted to cut him open, take out his intestines and sift through his intestines to see if they could find anything. Luckily, he said no. We were able to fix him. The root of his cause? Anger towards his father. So anyways, sadness, grief. But when the grief is gone and the shame is gone, then the positive virtue of courage. So if you think about it, the lungs are like a shield. Also, your lungs are part of your immune system too. You know that your lungs make a big portion of your blood? It's not just your bone marrow, it's your lungs. So if you think about it, you know, we see this down here, right? This shield, right? This shielding effect. Well, this is part of our immune system. The stronger that these lungs are, then guess what? The more we have the ability to ward off the intrusion of external pathogens, viruses and bacteria. The stronger our lungs are. Okay, so our kidneys and our bladder, our kidneys work with our urinary bladder. Fear, fright, and shock. Because some people say, Chris, I don't have any fear. I'm like, okay. Mostly it's guys that say that. I don't have any fear. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Most men have some type of fear. They're just covering up, and then they cover it up with anger, and it's still just fear, right? I'll say, but if you don't identify with fear for you, shock, surviving a severe illness, surviving a car accident, any type of febrile disease will weaken the kidneys, surviving abuse, neglect, burning the candles at both ends, not enough sleep, will shock these kidneys, and we see all kinds of conditions that come up as a result of it. Okay, so this is the big one. Like I said, a lot of times, because the liver works with your gallbladder, and so anger, frustration, hate, old anger attacks your liver and your gallbladder. And this is a big one. And don't get me wrong, these emotions are good. Like anger is a good emotion. If it causes you to fight to get out from a bad situation, if it causes you to fight for the underdog, then guess what? That anger is doing what it's supposed to do. If that anger is causing you to create positive change in the world, then guess what? That anger is doing what it's supposed to do. But if that anger is causing you to go home and blow up at somebody, punch a hole in the wall, have road rage, kick the dog, develop a substance abuse problem, then guess what? That anger is no longer serving you. And what's interesting about these 5 element, I was talking about the 5 personality types that we talked about, these emotions. These are the go-to emotions. So for an earth type, the go-to emotion is to worry a lot. Heart type is kind of like mania, like lack of boundaries. For the metal type, or what we call for the lungs, that person tends to not to show the grief, doesn't want to show that as a sign of weakness. The kidneys tend to be a little bit of fear orientated. The liver, for when the wood type is out of balance for the liver, then that means that the person, their fallback emotion is anger. And once again, everybody has all of these typologies in them, but each of us is a primary, we could be a combination of 2. So we all house all of these, but we are a combination of 2. Like most everybody could be stubborn, right? Earth people are really stubborn. Yeah, they're like a mountain, right? You want to try to push them, they're not going to want to be pushed. You can normally tell by stubborn, yeah, because they have a strong jaw, strong cheekbones, strong chin. This is what happens. So heart disease, abandonment, loneliness, lack of joy. This number, and what's crazy is with the scientific technology, you would think that these numbers would be dropping, and they're not dropping, they're actually going up. It's amazing to me. What we could do now scientifically, you would think that, but it's not. So 7.4 million people. Again, the underlying emotion, abandonment, loneliness, lack of joy. How many times have you heard it? Somebody's died of a broken heart. Johnny Cash died not too long after June Carter passed away, right? Diabetes and cancer. This is, believe it or not, diabetes and cancer actually stems from an imbalance of your spleen. Prolapses. Does anyone know what a prolapse is? It's when your organs fall out of place. You could have a prolapse of the uterus, you could have a prolapse of the anus, you have a prolapse of the bladder. It's when the spleen becomes weak. and the emotion that demand for nurturing, anxiety, worry. So this number is only increasing, especially childhood diabetes and cancer. This number is on a rise as well too. Lung diseases, sadness, grief, disappointment, loss. Okay, 3.1 million people. This number is on a rise. And this one really kills me, nephritis. This is kidney disease. I don't know about down here as much, because we normally fly in and out on the weekends. But up in the Bay Area, there's so many dialysis companies popping up all over the place. Kidney disease. Fear, fright, and shock. Now true, now the nephritis of the kidney disease is also the food that they're eating. The food that they're eating. So when we look at nephritis and kidney disease, because that has to filter through those darn kidneys, and the foods. And I hear some people say, oh, well, there's no proof that genetically modified foods harm you. Well, to me, anytime you change something in nature, then guess what? Your body has to come back to you in your body. Now, if your constitution is strong, sure. Like, you probably bounce off that pretty quickly, you know, and not see any side effects. But accumulation of processed, accumulation of sugar, which has become the new tobacco, right? Those kinds of things, then guess what? It has a process through these kidneys. And then the liver, so strokes, anger, frustration, bitterness, 6.7 million people. So strokes, you know, we're a bit younger and younger people, because in Silicon Valley, it's interesting, most of my clients down here are celebrities or in the entertainment business at some level. My clients up there are mostly in high tech, most of them, except for, like I said, the athletes and stuff like that. And I'm seeing these 23-year-olds, yes, they have the 1.5, the $2 million home, because that's how much it costs to get a home up there. But they have tremors at age 23 because their nervous system is shutting down because they're working 12, 14-hour days, right? So we're seeing up there this, they have the fancy, everyone has the Tesla, everyone has the Bentley or whatever, you know, but their nervous system is saying, you know what, yeah, you make all that money, but look, at 23 years old, you shouldn't be shaking like that. Ultimately, what I'm saying is that when these organs get out of balance, normally due to poor diet, lack of exercise, and different emotional stress that we all have in our life, when it's held on to, it shows up as disease. And as fitness professionals, the times are evolving, where more and more people are starting to recognize, like we have an online Qigong teacher training program that's 13 weeks. The next one starts level 1 in June. And we're having more fitness professionals sign up for that because they're starting to see that, you know what, I need to give my customers something else on top of what it is I'm doing. What's going to make you one step ahead of the game of what everybody else is doing, right? What is everybody else doing right now? You know, yes, we're looking at diet, we're looking at all the new exercises that are routines that are coming out. But what is the one thing that is starting to catch on? And it's this. And again, you go and take another Qigong teacher training program that's just going to teach you the movements, that's fine. My attitude is that just like if you're taking a NASM test or something like that, I want you to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. I'm not just sitting up here spitting out information because, oh, just believe in Chris. No, I want you to try it out for yourself, see for yourself, and then apply it to your customers and to the people that you serve. Because when you're serving people, that's how you really give back. That's how the world actually benefits, right? When people serve other people. And so we're seeing up there in the Bay Area, for example, more and more yoga studios are having Qigong classes in their yoga studios. It's not by accident. You know, these practices are thousands and thousands of years old, and it's finally hitting the mainstream. More and more people are getting on board and seeing, this clinically, this is Harvard is doing medical papers showing the increase in gray matter. Harvard Medical School, UCLA is writing up medical papers now on the benefits. So it's finally gaining the momentum. If you have somebody that's obese who gets winded or something like that you're working with, for example, you know, you're not going to have them do burpees. It's going to be baby steps. And maybe some of the baby steps too is, well, what caused them to use food as an emotional crutch to begin with? Because most people that are overweight, my father is overweight, uses food as an emotional crutch. It's a form of an addiction. It's no different than alcohol or drugs or anything else. It's a form of an addiction. What makes somebody want to use like that. There is an emotional reasoning for that. So you could give them some of these movements that we're going to cover today as tools, but really being able to take it one step further to really combine all aspects of a person's being. But again, I just have to emphasize this, it's really about your own beingness. It starts with you. There's a forum for which you post a question, an answer to a question each week on the forum. Throughout the 13 weeks, then I go ahead and give 3 Zoom calls so that we get to feel the community. So what's cool about the way we have it set up this way is that we get people from around the world to take the course. At the end of the 13 weeks, then we meet for a weekend workshop. And if you can't meet in person, then we Zoom you in. And it's really cool because we put you on the flat screen TV, on the flat screen. It really feels like the person, we get people from Costa Rica, like all over the place that take the course. Once again, times are changing. Things are not getting better out there. There's certain situations that are regressing, and we can't avoid what's happening. All we could do is handle how we internalize it, and then give those tools then to other people. So if you want to change the consciousness of the world, you can't change the consciousness by saying have the war on drugs or stop the war on terrorism or the war on anything, because anytime you say the war on this, the war on that, all you do is you create more war. So to change the world, it starts with yourself. And I'm hoping that what you walk away with today is a deeper understanding actually of how your body functions and how your emotional stress and trauma actually plays a role into how you feel. And exercise, like I said, exercise is such a great way, functional movement, such a great way to help with stress. But you have to get inside and really look what's going on inside. Another amazing weekend here in downtown Los Angeles at Fit Expo 2020. Had a great time teaching the fitness professionals Tai Chi and Qigong to help improve their life, but also more importantly to be able to help the people that they serve. Thank you again for checking us out, and until next time, I will Chi you later.